Alright, another falsification of the snow line and the frost line. As per definition of establishment dogma, the snow line or the frost line is a location during a object's formation around a pre-solar nebula of where ice or water remains as ice, as stable ice, even under direct sunlight. So basically, the definition that's accepted is 3.1 astronomical units away from the sun. So the Earth sits at 1. So you would have 1, 2, 3, and then some outside the sun, which means all the water that exists inside this area should be as water, not ice. So a simple falsification of that would be Earth, being that Earth has a large South Pole and a large North Pole where ice is there even under direct sunlight during the summer, and it remains stable. So basically, the polar ice caps falsify the snow line, frost line definition right off the bat. And with theory of stellar metamorphosis, it states quite clearly, and I need to write up a separate paper on this because I haven't yet, but that the snow line, the frost line, is inside of the star itself. So you have these people hypothesizing this stuff, not actually focusing on the single object itself, but as the entire solar system as a whole, which is why a lot of the theories seem ad hoc and don't make any sense. But what they need to do is focus on the individual star itself. You have a star as it evolves, its interior is really hot, gets hot, forms the core and all the land inside of it, and there's a lot of heat in there. So basically, the snow line depends on, yes, of course, if it's orbiting some other object really closely, then it would be hot on the outside of it, but then that outer atmosphere will prevent the heat from coming in, and it would get colder in this area. And then as you go further in, it would get hotter. So the snow line would have a double line on it, like inside that little sphere. And it would be around the entire, there'd be a sphere around the entire star, of course, and as the star evolves, that line changes and morphs and goes towards the center of the star as the interior cools and the star contracts. As well, if there's no hotter object and the star just wandering the galaxy as a free-floating object, and it hasn't been adopted by anybody, it's an orphan, this outside area is cold, and the snow line, well, there wouldn't exactly be a snow line, but there would be a point to where the further you go into the interior of the star, the ices melt. So yes, there would be one line for that case, but at the same time, that would be like a reverse snow line. It would be the line to where water begins melting as you move towards the interior of the evolving star. And for those people who do not understand or have read the theory of stellar metamorphosis, it's basically a different philosophy altogether. Now I'm going to go ahead and write that philosophy on here, that way people can understand what's going on. There are two main philosophies. The main one that's accepted and causes a lot of ad hoc explanations to be invented by establishment is that the evolution, how do I put this? The solar system's components, meaning the objects inside the solar system, are directly dependent on the sun's formation and subsequent evolution. The second philosophy, which is, stellar metamorphosis, is that the solar system's components the objects inside of the solar system are not directly, actually, let's put it like this. They are mostly independent of the sun's formation and subsequent evolution. Now, if you'll notice the two main differences here and why it had to do with the snow line falsification. This is dogma. Okay. Now, the main reason why I'm saying this is because when they have the entire solar system forming, all the components are reliant upon the sun's formation and evolution. They look at the sun as being the driving force for almost everything in the solar system, and everything's evolutionary path is dependent on what happens to the sun. But I think that's absolutely horrendously wrong. I think what actually happens is that the sun is the newest object in our solar system, and it adopted more evolved objects. And these components, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, Earth, Mars, Mercury, are mostly independent of the sun's formation and evolution. The truth is that those objects have their own paths of evolution that they are currently in. They have their own lives before they came into the solar system altogether. And they are at different stages of their evolution, meaning they are independent of the sun. It's an entirely different way of looking at the solar system, because essentially it's not the solar system. What it is, what would be more accurate would be to say it's a bunch of different stars in different paths of their evolution. It's not, it's a system in as much as the objects are in their current position, but they weren't always in the position that they're in right now. So we have to focus on the individual aspect of them and not the co-dependency or the dependency on them. So in other words, you have dependent objects on the sun, and then you have independent of the sun. That's basically what this amounts to, and why a lot of ideas such as the snow line were invented, because they tried to force all these objects to be related to each other, but they're not related at all. They're independent of each other. All right, today is June 21st, 2015.